On July 29, 2022, President Paul Biya dropped all investment charges against a former Minister of Water and Energy of Atangana Kouna. According to the Minister of State, Ferdinand Gongo, the President of the Republic had ordered every prosecution against him to be dropped. The decision was in a letter addressed to the Minister of State, Minister of Justice, custodian of the seals, Laurent Eso. The letter added that the use of Article 64, subsection 3 of the Code of Criminal Procedure is not relevant to the case. This move by President Paul Biya has sparked a lot of controversies against or amongst Cameroonians. In today's edition of Voice It, we shall be taking a deeper look at this move made by President Paul Biya. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you immensely for joining us on a fresh dose of Voice It over your Pan-African channel For You Media. Of course, today we have guests in the house to talk today's topic of discussion. Here with me in the studio is Dr. NGWANYAM. He is an entrepreneur as well as a political analyst. Good day, sir.
Thank you, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be with you here today, and I'm coming to your house for the first time. It's a great place.
Thank you immensely. To kick off, let's get down to business. What evaluation, what analysis do you make of this fresh move made by President Paul Biya?
I must say that everybody in Cameroon has been very confused about such a move. And until the president himself tells us in his own words why he did what he did, we will all remain very confused and can only try to imagine what all this means. But I would imagine that probably he is changing strategy in the sense that, you know, since the prisons are very full with embezzlers, might be he is starting a new way of doing business by trying to see how he can send some of them home and get the money and put the money back in the public treasury. We actually need that money for building schools, for doing so many other things. And I think it's more important to get that money back into the system for development than for just locking people up and then feeding them and looking after them.
So you are in the economic sector. Given the current situation of Cameroon, given the security as well as economic impacts that have been affecting the country, what do you think this move means for the Cameroonian people?
The most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that we want a public sector that works.
Yes.
We want a public sector that is responsible. We want a public sector that will deliver. We are tired of having people, you know, locked up, taken to court and so on. That's not what we are not interested in people going to court, being locked up and so on. And therefore, we would rather ask that public servants should be responsible. And if we can tell early on that a public servant is not disciplined, then we put him away and put someone there who works. Because I think that the problem here has been that we know that people are crafty and we leave them there for so long, and then they do whatever they want to do. 20 years afterwards, we wake up like was it diarrhea? Take them, lock them up, and then turn around. That's not a functional. That's not a proper way of doing it. You know, we should keep a hawk's eye on every civil servant.
Yes.
The minute we can tell that a penny is going
wrong,
yes,
they should be corrected
instantly. Not waiting. And
we have millions and millions.
We know that some guy is not good 10 years beforehand. He is changed and put in some other ministries and some other ministries and some other ministries. Even during when the government is being renewed, they are not put away. But at the end of the day, they are caught up and locked up, and then we are told of a crime that they committed 20 years ago. And some, you don't know what's happening to them. They're never taken to court and so on. So it's just so confusing, really. Very, very confusing.
Okay, it's high time we equally welcome our second guest in the house. She's joining us all the way from Nigeria. She is a security expert, KIKELOMO SHODEKO. Good day, ma'am. You're welcome to today's edition.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So as we're discussing Cameroon today, I'd like to ask you, what evaluation do you make of this move made by President Paul Biya of Cameroon?
Well, like the other speaker already said, we really don't know until he mentions it. So, for whatever reason, he's suddenly releasing him. For whatever reason whatsoever, he's still in the best position, and is speaker or media or whoever it is should be able to tell us. So this is the reason why the president has decided to let go of this guy that they went a whole lot of trouble to get him back into to get him jailed in the first place. As we remember, he was jailed in 2018. If you remember, he was extradited all the way from Nigeria to be jailed. That's like 4 years ago. So why suddenly releasing him for good behavior? It's still the president that'll be able to answer that. So until we have that part from the president, I don't think we have any other thing to say concerning that.
Okay, so as a security expert, do you think this move actually has an impact on the economy or say the development of Cameroon?
As we all know, in Africa here, we've not been able to really deal with our processing and organization. We've not been able to do that. So it really doesn't impact anything. He was picked up 4 years ago, jailed. Now the president is releasing him. I think it's just a good news for his family, who might have really missed him being home. But on a larger scale, it doesn't really mean much, because it still shows that there are no long-term consequences for actions that have to do with public funds or public office. So, like the other speaker was saying, until there is proper and quick attention to these types of situations, it's just one of those releases the president has done, and for his family to be happy to have him. Thank you.
Thank you to Ms. KIKELOMO. SHODEKO. Over to you, Doc. Last week we saw Benin President Patrice Talon that granted a presidential pardon to over 30 persons that were arrested during the last year presidential elections. Now, President Paul Biya has actually granted freedom to Atangana Kouna. What does this mean? Is it not coincidental that it come at a time when French President Emmanuel Macron actually visited both countries?
Well, you're talking about, I'm glad to learn it from you, I didn't follow up on this. So if 30 political prisoners were released in Benin,
yes,
you said political prisoners,
yes,
but the one that was released in Cameroon is not a political prisoner. He's a financial prisoner.
Well, still member of the government.
Well, yeah, but if he was a member of a government and a good one, he shouldn't touch a penny to start with. Exactly. So we are more concerned about the money he carted away home, and then we are glad that the money has come back. But the interesting thing is, this kind of money coming back, we don't really know where it's going to. The second person will just carry it away, and it will never be.
The cycle continues over and over again.
So I think the greatest problem we have is that of bad governance.
Bad governance. Yeah, bad how can governance. Africa, how can we tame this canker worm?
That's right. Since I'm on your TV set for the first time, maybe I would say what I've been saying several times, so that we all learn to know how things work. You know, I've been saying, of course, if you listened to me before, I've been saying it on other TV stations, but because I'm here, might be I should just take off time to repaint the picture so that we are all thinking and reasoning together. Now, how does a system function? How does a country function? How does an industry or any community function? How is it supposed to function so that you get the best results? There are three things that you need to have a system run. Number one, you need politics or policies. Number two, you need a sound economics. Number three, you need development. It's very important. And when you are talking about let's go over it. When you say politics, you mean the policies, and there should be good policies, and then they should be followed up to make sure that those good policies are implemented to the letter. You mean economics, and by economics, you are asking yourself the question: how is wealth created? How do people earn the money? How do you make money, and how do you spend it? Number three is development, and when you're talking about development, you're actually looking at two things. There's physical development of physical structures. You're talking about communication, roads, housing, hospitals, the transportation system, all sorts of communications. Then you are talking, that's part A of development. Then there's part B of development, which is more important than anything else we've been talking about, is the human capacity development. And that is the problem with Africa. The human capacity development is very, very, very poor. And when you talk about human capacity development, what exactly are you looking at? You are looking at the human person who has been trained and given skills and an understanding to understand problems and solve them.
Yes.
That's it. In skills in specific areas to be able to do specific things and change water into wine. And it is in the course of changing water into wine. Water into wine here we're using it is an euphemism. Just an example. It is in the course of changing something to something and giving it value that you create wealth, that you earn money. Now, that is the problem of Africa. And if we say that the human development index is the most important thing, then the question is, how do you get it? You get it through a proper educational system, through a proper education. And that is the underlying cause, the thing that is hidden under the carpet that many people are not aware of. So we're talking about politics, economics, and development. And these things are spinning around in a chaotic fashion in Africa. And then what we are not seeing is the force that is spinning the things around, is the education that is not well developed. And that's why our politics is not working. Where there's a lot of hatred, hate speech. People promise that they will do this and they don't do this because they don't have the capacity. That's so. In Cameroon, we have 350 political parties. If you like, you should have 1,000 political parties. It's no use. Is it making some sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
When it comes to economics, your children must be able to have the skills to be able to build their own roads, to be able to grow their own wheat, to be able to make their own cell phones, to be able to make their own computers. That's what we are talking about. And our education does not have skills. And that was done on purpose by our colonial masters who gave us something and deceived us with something.
In order to limit us from the concept of independence.
Yes, that is it. So technically, now you've used a very beautiful word. You are looking at independence, interdependence, and dependence. What we in Africa, we think that we have independence. We don't. Real independence is economic independence. If you don't have economic independence, you have absolutely nothing. I hope I drove that message clear. Exactly. Even if I said nothing the whole day and I said only this, and all of Africa understands it, then we would have contributed in building Africa.
Exactly. We have everyone has equally the part to play in order to develop these great continents. Over to you, Ms. KIKELOMO. Do you think this move made by President Paul Biya is something that other African leaders should copy?
Okay, so it's not, the thing is, I know I sound a bit bored by the topic because I am bored. There's really nothing to this, to be frank. We see more and more corruption. We see more and more embezzlement of funds. We see more and more of this because these people know they can get away with it. And not only that, when they are eventually prosecuted, there's a leniency always to the advantage. One president somewhere is maybe their friend or something, and eventually they want to let them go and release them on good behavior or for whatever reason. And the funny thing is, it's not just playing out now in Africa or in Cameroon. It's also playing in the US, where we saw what the former president was ready to do, and he's still thinking and he's still capable of doing. So everybody wants to be at the helm of power, because at the end of the day, it might be to your advantage when you are caught doing the wrong thing. And that in itself is a problem. For me, it doesn't change anything. Well, on my own part, like I said, initially, whatever it meant for the president to release Kouna in this case, the question is left to him. He knows why he released him. But it really doesn't change much. It's a cycle, and we can't continually not persecute bad behavior. The more we leave bad behavior because some people are above the law, the more the decay will continue. Because as he's been released now, or as he's been freed and pardoned, or whatever it is that they call it these days, he can be chosen by another set of government as a minister. What stops the other government from choosing him as minister? Nothing, because it's a ministerial position and it's a choice made by the president, maybe at the approval of the National Assembly, which in most cases is still part of the ruling party most times. And so there's no working, if I could put it that way. There's no friction that will show that people understand cause and effect, sequence and occurrence. If there is, we won't be speaking as much on some of this. I don't expect us to get it perfect from the start. I just expect us to work on it, to start from somewhere. Like you compared it with the Benin situation with President pardoning. Those are political. They weren't supposed to even be in jail initially, but because there was a political vendetta in the first place, they were put in jail. And so this is totally different. This is very financial in nature, and there are many more ministers embezzling as we are speaking right now, and they've not been caught because they are not under the radar, as the case may be. Maybe they are still friends with the president or friends with people in government, and so they are not shaken by anything. And so I really don't see it. It doesn't move any needle. Like I said, it's good for his family. It's good for his family to see him back home. It's a good thing the president has done for him. But in the long run, it's just something that will keep happening until we put in measures in place that will curb this kind of behavior. So the inherent evilness or the inherent way in which humans are supposed to behave should generally be curbed by proper judicial systems. But if there isn't any, this type of behavior will continue. Thank you.
Exactly. You did mention everything, but you said there are still others that are still in jail, incarceration due to what they did. Do you think that after the President Paul Biya has freed Atangana Kouna, is going to follow suit for the others?
Well, it might not follow suit. Like I said, it's the decision by the president to release some people over some people. It's always I think sometimes they get this kind of, I think most of them they get this kind of advice from the people in government, like, okay, release this guy, is going to be maybe useful to you in the future, or release that guy. And if the president can release Kouna, why not release other people that are there, maybe for political or for economic reasons or financial reasons, as the case may be. So the ball is at the discretion of the president, and that's what is exciting about this type of pardon, as the case may be. It's a pardon. It's at the discretion of the president and what his advisors are saying to him at the moment. So yeah, he could release more or still leave them in prison. The ball is left in the president's court. Thank you. Yeah,
as you said it all, it's left in the president's court. Okay, I'll cut it over to you, Doc. You are an entrepreneur, and given this move, how do you think it's going to affect not just the economic but the progress and development of Cameroon?
I'm not so sure how useful it is, but if we look at all the people who are locked up,
yes,
and all the monies they are in their keeping, if the government were to make it a policy and just say, okay, use the same Atangana Kouna measure and apply it to everybody and say, okay, all of you get out, just give us the money and get out.
They'll keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, yeah, they might steal again, but the beautiful thing is at least we'll have some money back in our hands and we can invest that money into something useful.
Yes.
But because now we don't have the money, and then we are feeding them in prison, looking after their health and so on.
And yet the government is still spending.
The government is still spending on them. So let us stop loss. In economics, I mean, as an entrepreneur, when you have a bad business, you stop loss. That means you do whatever you want to do to stop losing. Okay, they stole. So just get the money back. Probably not all of it. Just get some of the money back, because as of now you've gotten nothing back. So get the money back so that you can inject it into the economy. Then you stop feeding them. They can feed themselves with their families and so on. So you are stopping loss really. And then you know, people have been asking a lot of questions on the streets. What happened to that? If you go into the prison units, you will see that the prisoners like Atangana Kouna, what is his name? He was not just in about any kind of a cell. They're in a high class kind of environment, five-star VIP part of the prison. But if we go to that VIP part of the prison, there are so many more people there.
Yes.
And then if you now go to the popular side of the prison, there are just thousands of people there who have not been attended to, who are suffering, some are dying and so on. And if we now go use the same measure and go down the why are you in prison, you'll find out that some people are in prison just because they stole a goat, they stole a chicken, and so on. So are we going to leave them there for 20 years because they stole a chicken? And then, you know,
someone embezzles and the person is giving presidential pardon.
Yes, so I think we need to actually, I don't know how temper justice with mercy or something like that.
Exactly.
You know, go ahead there and just be level-headed and try to solve some of these problems. You know, get many of these our youth who are in prison, you know, put them in a reformatory school, teach them some useful skills, help them to be productive in the community. We should look at ways of making many of these youth productive, not just locking people up. Just locking people up is not useful.
So, just to ask away from this topic of discussion, how do you think Cameroon can revive its economy?
Oh, I think that's the most beautiful question. Affaire cap affaire très sérieux. And when you ask that question, I can reframe it again and to say that you have no independence if you don't have economic independence. You have no independence if you don't have economic independence, be it either in the family or in the community or as a nation. And economic independence means that you are in a position to earn your own money and spend it the way you want. Of course, not waste it, but spend it reasonably the way you want for your upkeep and for investments. All right?
Yes.
So, another way to frame it, how do you create wealth? How do you create wealth? So if you look at these questions very closely, you will realize that most of the violence in Africa, the wars, the violence, the fighting, the suffering, if you look at this, all these children who are dying in the Mediterranean Sea, those that are kidnapped in Libya as slaves and their organs removed or they are killed, and all of these our youths that are piling in front of the US Embassy every 4 a.m. to run away from the country, there is something that is pushing them away out of our communities. It is economic deprivation. Okay, it's their inability to be able to meet their needs. So it is about the economy. The question is, what are we going to do as a people to turn the economy around? Once you turn the economy around and put money into the pockets of youths, that's the secret. If we can all answer the question and really go for it, what do we do as a people to help youths put money in their pockets? You see, it's to help youths put money in their pockets. Not that you put money in the pockets of youths. No, you help youths with the opportunities and capacities to create their own wealth. Will solve a lot of problems. And that, when you look at it very strictly, you realize that that's why our education has failed, because it does not teach children these things. It teaches, we all go to universities in our African countries, and it's so unfortunate. First we go to primary and secondary school and the university, and then we know that when you go to primary school you have so many subjects to study. In secondary school it's still a subject approach, not competence-based approach. In university it's still subjects. So you see a child who has a first degree in history. The question is, what are you doing with a first degree in history? He has studied history all along and is only telling a lot of stories and so on. But he has no capacity to use that knowledge or anything that he has acquired to change water into wine. So what we are saying is that we have to change our education in Africa, in Cameroon and in Africa, and give children what it takes. Give children those capacities for them to be able to go out there, look into the community, say, in this community there's not enough rice for people to eat. In this community, there's not enough fish for people to eat. And we have been spending all our money importing rice and fish from China. How can we as youths come together, learn the technology, buy the equipment, get the land, and cultivate these things and feed the populations? In fact, if our youth in Cameroon were able to do this, they will earn 350 billion francs every year,
so
because that's how much we are wasting.
It's about identifying a problem in
Yeah.
society and
Yeah.
trying to solve
And
that problem.
not just trying it and then
Solving
solving
the
it.
problem.
So that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Entrepreneurship is about identifying problems in the community and then putting and crafting together, systems that will be able to address those problems. It is because nature doesn't pay you for a certificate. Nature pays you for solving problems. You see what I mean? So we need to get our children to a point where they can act. They have a critical eye for critical diagnosis and critical thinking, to be able to identify problems and know where the true pinch is, and go ahead and solve that problem, and create systems to solve that problem. Another way to kind of like put it so that it's very clear, here we are talking about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship, a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is just one isolated subject that you can go to a university and study and you are an entrepreneur. No, 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 no. That's not it.
You study directly on the field.
Yes, entrepreneurship is a capacity that you build. Entrepreneurship is about a capacity, and then you get a couple of tools. It's like a carpenter having different sorts of tools on his table that he can use to craft something. So that's how an entrepreneurship is, An entrepreneurship, imagine yourself on a bicycle wheel.
Yes.
A bicycle wheel has got a spindle, right, in the center, and you have this
wires.
they're called spindles. They go out to the periphery, and you can spin the bicycle wheel around like this. So an entrepreneur is someone who sits at the center of the wheel, and then he identifies a problem, and then he has nothing. He has only his brain and the capacity. And then he says, Sharon, Sharon is that spoke that's going from me to you. Okay, she has this skills. She has communication skills. This other guy has the money. This guy, he understands how to grow rice. That other one can actually package the rice. And then he
connects.
This guy is a banker. Then he pulls all these forces together, and then bakes the cake. And then things happen. An entrepreneur, and that, I think I should make it very clear. You have watched Nigerian films where, you have some of these Nigerian businessmen, they boast about going to China and bringing in 8 containers every week. That is not an entrepreneur. In fact, you cannot just going and buying something that somebody has manufactured, filling containers and bringing and dumping them in your country. That's not entrepreneurship. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we know that we have no rice in Cameroon, and people have been going and bringing shiploads of rice and feeding Cameroonians. That's not entrepreneurship. Actually, it's dumping. You are killing the economy.
Yeah,
An
Cameroon
entrepreneur
does produce rice.
Yes, an entrepreneur is someone who approaches that lack of rice situation differently. Instead of going to import cheap rice to come and flood the market,
how to produce
he sees how to produce it. He uses local labor, puts things together and solves that problem and conserves the money, because the other one is wasting capital, but this one is conserving capital, is more efficient. Are you seeing the difference?
Yes.
That's it. That's what we need to do. And therefore, it's all about changing our educational system. Because as of now, if you ask me what is wrong with our educational system, our educational system is crafted wrongly. The whole mindset or the whole system is wrong. The thinking is wrong. The educational system as of now is 70 to 80% arts inclined, okay, and then only 20% technology and science inclined. We need to reverse that so that we have 70% STEM, science, technology, engineering, economics, and mathematics inclined, and then 20% social sciences. We need to change things around. But as of now, we just have a lot of storytelling around, and it's not working.
Thank you, Doc, for that elaborate contribution.
Thank
Over
you.
to you, Ms. KIKELOMO. Given the economic situation in Nigeria, given the economic situation in Cameroon, now with the release of Atangana Kouna, what critique could you bring out of all this?
There's really no critic. See, the thing is this: we need to understand. Dr. Nick has done an elaborate job in understanding, in explaining how economy is the beginning of how we can transform our continent and our various countries. Criminal elements have taken advantage of how the economy has continually downturned to go about their business. So they are also running a business while the people are in penury. So those that are able to at least rummage one or two together are being, these things are taken from them by people that are already in another business that is criminally inclined. The critic remains. Our systems are not functioning as they should. Kudos to the countries that are figuring it out one step at a time. But for most countries in Africa, the people in charge, the people that have been elected or possibly taking over the government or whatever it is that they're doing currently, do not understand that it requires a process for infrastructure to work. So we should understand that if you do the wrong thing, if you go about doing the wrong thing, you should be persecuted for that wrong. It should be clear, and not just one person or because they are less privileged, but it should be across board. Now, this is a general human problem because we are seeing these types of prejudice also in other parts of the world. It's not just in Africa, but for us, it's not a criteria. We've gotten it wrong from the start, and it's all because the people that are supposed to make the right decisions, they're not bringing in technocrats into those spaces. So, for example, we can see what is happening in Zambia today. All they did was bring in the right person that understood what it required to transform their country. And they're doing it one step at a time. And so it's the same for each and every one of our countries. When we understand that it's not just about your tribe or because you've been in government before or because you have money that makes you competent to run a position. Rather, it is from your pedigree. That is, we've seen you in action before. So, for example, Nick is an entrepreneur. So, which means to an extent, he understands what is required to own a business. So, why isn't someone like him brought in to come and sit at a table with government that is ready to implement? Because it's government that has the money to implement. You can't compare governments with private entities. They have the money. So why is he not brought on a seat with government or with people in government or whatever level of government that they can bring him in to sit down, to explain, and they step by step implement what he's explaining, right? But we don't have that. So what we have are people that don't have a clue how the world is currently working. So even I myself, I have to learn day by day to make sure that I am not lagging behind in my field, to make sure that when I'm speaking based on knowledge, not based on ignorance. But we have most of the people in government today that are ignorant. They don't know what they're doing there. Some are there because they're friends of a friend that is linked to someone in government. Some are there because they have a bit of money. Most are there because they don't have the know-how. While those that have the know-how are in private sectors, and you see how the private sector or businesses grow and do better, or in worst case scenarios, they totally leave the country for better places that now bring them into their system and make them work for them. So my critique will always go through until we build a proper process that it is step by step, day by day, implementation by implementation. We'll keep here and keep speaking the same, English or whatever language we know how to speak best. Till we bring in people that know how to do it, and we see a proper implementation process. I will sing the song of processing from now till the end of my days. There is a process to everything. There is a methodology to everything. For your thesis as a graduate, you have to go through a methodology. For your thesis as a postgraduate, you have to go through a methodology. And for doctorates, that's even the highest part. They want to know how you got to this answer. So methodology trumps even your answers at the end of the day, because it is believed that when you do go through a method, a process consistently, there will be an outcome. And the outcome is what? What is the outcome you want to see? So in the French system that they say is not obligation de moyens, but obligation de résultat. Yes, obligation de résultat, but there needs to be a means, there needs to be a process. So we can't forget processing and just go to results without actually proper processing that will get us to that place. So as much as it is that he's been released, he's going back to enjoy his wealth, as the case may be, because he was a former minister, and of course coupled with maybe the money he embezzled after he's been convicted, you know, and he still gets to travel and do as he pleases, you know. So yeah, that's my critique. Until we have processes in place that properly prosecute people that do wrong, and at the same time runs an economy that is for everyone, so that we don't have to start leaving our countries and facing all this racist backlash that we get in all the countries we go to. Till then, we'll just keep speaking English language. Thank you.
Thank you too. If I did follow what you said, it means that most African leaders, most of our governments, what we need are economic experts like Dr. Nick here, so that we can actually forge ahead, right?
Exactly. We do need experts. We need economic experts. We need people that know what they are saying, and there is already a record in place that they have achieved something. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just, oh, I am this, like, because like you explained about education, for example, we have so many people that have gone through the school system. So they have a degree, but can't even apply the degree that they have because it's only theoretical. They've never been able to apply it at something. They've not been able to use it for something tangible to help the country. Not everybody has to be in business. I say that. But I will say that in whatever position you are put in, there should be something that shows you are different. There should be something that shows that you are all about the success or the outcome. So he is speaking as someone that has seen a process work. So why don't you bring it in and see if we can apply that same process into our systems and make it work for not just one person, but for the country at large. What differentiates our continent from other parts of the world that we are running to is because they have infrastructure in place, and that infrastructure builds the process. And that same infrastructure also caters to that human infrastructure that he was talking about. So, for example, if someone was killed, now, you don't need to go and pray before someone will pick up that case and run it and take it to court on the behalf, because the judicial system works to an extent. I'm talking on a general level. I know all these countries are also facing their own issues in their processing, but I'm trying to make you understand that if something happened, justice will be served according to that which has happened. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. It will be served. But in Africa, before justice is served, it is a longer process. Sometimes the courts take forever before they put a process in place even. And sometimes when it's to the advantage of the government, they rush it, you know, and it's your own advantage in that case, because it's not about justice being served, but they just want you to pay, most times for something you did not do, you know. So all this dynamic is at play. It's not rocket science. It has never been rocket science. It is just human behavior. And human behavior will get better. I'm not talking about the other aspect now. Human behavior when it comes to moral standing will get better when there is an in and out, when there is a movement, when there is justice, when there are people in place that are actually putting down policies that are for the people, for the general interest, and not just for private interest. So another thing we also see in Africa is where people put in policies that are for private interests, right? So it's only a group of people that would enjoy it, forgetting that more and more of the population need this kind of policies to their advantage, you know. We are not passing bills or laws that will help the people. Rather, it is laws that will, you know, clamp down on the people that they are passing. So all these factors, see, Nick has explained everything to the best of his abilities to let us know what the requirements are. That is pedigree in itself, and those are the kind of people you need to bring in. So even if it's just one aspect, for example, economy, which is the biggest aspect for me too, because I believe when the economy of the people, when the people start thriving and doing better for themselves, there will be a change in how people look at things, for example, in how people think of crime, in how people rush out to leave the continent using crazy means, you know. It will better the lot of people. But the more you impoverish people by your policies and make it more and more difficult for people to survive, it's the contrary that would happen. Thank you.
Thank you to Ms. KIKELOMO. Over to you, Dr. Nick. What do you think, or what lessons do you think we can draw from all this, be it positive or negative?
I think we just have to, you're talking about, we've been talking about many things, economics, and then...
we're talking about everything,
okay.
Economy, the release of Atangana Kouna, amidst all this. What lessons can we really draw from all this?
The bottom line is that in Africa, we're not doing well. I mean, Cameroon in Africa...
Yeah, we keep saying that on a daily basis.
Yeah, we are not doing well at all. We are the scum of the earth. And God, do you know what? Africa is the most blessed continent in the world. But unfortunately, God put the black man in Africa, and I don't know what he did to his brain. He is irresponsible. That's the bottom line. We can blame colonization from morning till evening. That's one thing. But in as much as we have been colonized, he has given you the ability to think your way out of the problems. It is not the colonial master who is asking you to be drinking alcohol all day long and making babies that you cannot look after. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with your own education, with your behavior, and so on. Oh, by the way, do you know that success, to be able to be successful, 25% of all of your success depends on all your certificates, diplomas, and even if you have 20 PhDs, it's only 25%.
And you have 75%.
75% is your character. And then, again, how do you succeed? Is that DIY? I'm sure we've mentioned it before. Do it yourself. Until Africans get to the point where they can do those things themselves, it's storytelling. You must be able to do it yourself. And let me continue, Mrs.
KIKELOMO.
Yeah, sorry, the name is difficult for me to pronounce. She said something. She mentioned two things. Process. It's about processes. It's about processes. We must understand processes. There is nothing that works without a process. Technology is about processes.
Yeah, step by step.
Step by step.
So you get there.
And when we use the word process, many people might get confused. They think it's a big thing. You know how to cook fufu corn. You know how to pound a chew. You know how to cook a stew and rice or something. It's a process. It's a process. And the process starts from very far away. The person who was growing the tomatoes is a process. Bringing it to the market is a process. Processing it and putting it in a package form is a process. Selling the tomato is a process. Then you see the person growing the rice is a process. The one raising the chicken and beef is a process. It's about processes. Then now when you want to cook it, you just go, you leave your house, put together some money, go to the market, visit this stall to buy the tomato, to buy the chicken, to buy the salt. It's still a process because you are selecting. Then even you bring things back home. It's a process. Once you get home, then you wash this, cut this, chop this, put them in these in these proportions, and boil it for so much time, and do this, and at the end of the day, you have a meal. It's a process. You cannot just sit there and then go to the market and just gather the leaves and things and bring, and you have rice. No, it doesn't work like that. So it's when things are not working, is because we have not learned processes. And learning processes that's what we're talking about, human capacity to learn. You have to have what it takes to put processes together and make them work. And you do it yourself. Because now in Africa, we don't learn processes. And therefore, we are obliged to go bring the Chinese, the French.
We already know.
To do it for us. And while they're doing it for us, we are not even learning. We are instead drinking. You know, so 50 years and 60 years after independence, we still don't understand processes. And I think the other thing that she says, that the process and methodology, they're almost about the same thing. That methodology. Whatever we do, we have to learn the processes and realize that abracadabra does not work.
We need to get down to serious business.
Yes, abracadabra does not work.
Over to you, KIKELOMO. What lessons do you think we can learn from all these, be it positive or negative? Miss KIKELOMO, I believe you
That's
listened
really
to
good.
Dr. Nick, yes.
Yes, I did. I did. I heard what he said. I think one of the positives is that if you do steal, you might be in jail. But the negative is you might eventually be released by a president that still sees you as a friend. But in the long run, at the end of the day, I think he has encapsulated everything. It's not by the snap of the finger. There needs to be a process. There needs to be a methodology. All these things go through is one step at a time. We can't, especially considering the decay that has happened over the decades, right? It's not going to be the snap of a finger. Rather, we can take it like if we can get leaders, those in charge of our states and those in charge of our countries, can all come together really and forget their greed and let go of their greed or whatever it is, but really, 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 really think about their own people. Because one thing I can say is this: your personal success would only take you far. As we can see in what is happening nationwide, as in the whole world. Your personal success will take you far, no dispute. Individualism, perfect. But it will only take you as far as your individualism can go. It will always be about a nation and the nation's capacity to take care of its own. And that is when the respect for your people will begin. Until then, don't think because I'm a security expert, everybody knows my name. When I get to this, they'll give me an advantage. There will be someone that might not know you. If we all remembered what happened with Moses, it got to a stage that during the time of Moses, they forgot who Joseph was because it was all about one person. And they attacked the whole nation that was in their country for that period of time that made them go through slavery for a long time. So yes, it's good for us to be successful, individualistic, in the proper sense, but let us think as one people and have the respect of the world so that all the stories we hear about Africans being mistreated will go down to a minimum. Why? Because our people are prosperous, and at the same time, they really don't need to leave the country to achieve their goals. Thank you.
Okay, to wrap things up, if you had to give a message out to Cameroonians and the African continent as a whole, what would that be?
Think of the nation and not just about yourself. That's what I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you too. Over to you, Dr. Nick. If you had to pass across a very powerful message that leaders and probably the young generation could learn from, what would that be?
I would say, for instance, that Africans are not respected as a people, and the reason we are not respected is not because we are blacks. It's just that as a people we are not respected, and then at the end of the day you're called names, and you begin to think that you are being called names just by virtue of the fact that you're black. That's not the point. The point is you are not respecting yourself. When you don't respect yourself, others will not respect you. So you have to start by respecting yourself, and by respecting yourself means that you treat others right. You have a sense of common good. You are productive, and then you are making the best use of what God gave you. You are not greedy. You can be you are dependable. You can be trusted. All these values, that you have all these positive values, and above all that you can feed and take care of yourself. That means that you are productive enough to the extent that the other white, green, yellow, and the crimson people, they will come begging from you. Get yourself to the point where others will feed on you, not you feeding on them. Technically, the world is feeding on Africa, but what is happening is they are extracting our raw materials because we don't know how to use the raw materials. But if you were to say, hey, they are my raw materials and I'm not selling you a grain of these raw materials, you buy my finished product, the story would change.
Yeah, exactly. And Africa is going to be moving to a different dimension.
As long as they are taking the raw materials for a penny and then bringing you, and and then you are always begging, and then you are running to them to work in their factories and so on, they will always underlook you. But if you were to empower yourself and be so powerful that they will not survive without you, you would have the respect.
I must admit that I've learned a lot from today. Like, I must do it myself as an African, not just as a Cameroonian, but identifying a problem and finding a solution.
Yes.
Implementing that solution is the only way that Africans will actually forge ahead.
If you can't do it, forget it.
So I want to say thank you for taking our time to join us on today's edition.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you
so much. Over to you, Ms. KIKELOMO. Say thank you immensely for taking our time out of your busy schedule to join us on today's edition of VOICET.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's on that note. I believe you learned a lot from today's edition. I want to say keep watching our programs, and of course, God bless the world.